Dr. Patel, we've got to start with this vaccine news. This morning, the FDA released their analysis of that Pfizer vaccine ahead of the United States' decision on whether or not to authorize it. What stands out to you from these documents and as you look to what they're doing in the UK?
Yeah, Stephanie, great to be with you. Glad to see you're recovering and a speedy, continuous recovery. I will say there is no word other than gleeful. I'm looking through 53 pages. The committee will discuss this publicly Thursday. Three things stand out, Stephanie. There is actually incredible evidence that there's immunity that starts to occur even after the first dose. So I want to emphasize it's a 2-dose vaccine, but really strong efficacy even after the first dose. Second, I also want to warn Americans that it looks like this vaccine will have kind of the same reaction pattern that we see with the shingles vaccine, Stephanie, and people over a certain age, my patients will know what this is. Localized arm ache, some reaction at the site of the injection. All of that is, I think, very mild and certainly no serious adverse effects to speak of. And of course, this incredible kind of 95%. And I just want to unpack that briefly. What this tells us is that of the people who receive the vaccine, they are 95% less likely to get mild, moderate, or severe COVID compared to a group of people that don't get the vaccine. That's the right way to interpret it, and the data reinforces that.
It's rare that you join me on this show and you tell me you're gleeful, so I'll take that any day. But I want to talk about where we are right now, because we don't have the vaccine today. What we have is testing. Can you help me understand why 11 months in, our testing, which is so essential, is still in such a bad place? People are waiting 5, 6, 7, 8 days just to get their test results. And during that time period, we're expecting people to isolate. And we both know they're not. And when people don't isolate, that's when it spreads.
Stephanie, it's even worse than that. I will tell you that it's the very reason you've been reporting on small businesses of any size, schools. This has all been bound up in the cluster of testing or the lack thereof. And there's a couple of things. The FDA has not been willing to kind of create a pathway for what we call surveillance tests, Stephanie. So think about kids in schools around the country who don't necessarily have symptoms, but we want to understand if they could possibly have COVID. Universities around the country are doing this, by the way, and they've just done it with their own labs and taken it upon themselves. We should be able to scale that. Stephanie, you should be able, with the technology developed, you should be able to not even leave your house without an answer about whether or not there's a high chance you could have COVID. And I think it's a failure of regulatory status, and it's a failure of the will of the federal government to prioritize this, because at the end of the day, it takes energy and money to dedicate those resources, and they just simply haven't.
Okay, but then let's stay on that. Because if we want schools open, businesses open, which we both do, it's about having the information needed to isolate. And yes, it would cost a lot of money, but we're spending lots and lots of money already, and we're losing lots and lots of money because we're shut down. What would be the reason to not have this rapid test information? I mean, I'm somebody who is currently isolating, and I know exactly how hard it is to get tested, and it makes no sense to me. Who would want that?
Nobody. Stephanie, there is no explanation. And all you have to do is rewind several months when we saw Admiral Giroir. We've seen a number of Trump officials say that we're doing more testing than any other country. We're simply not doing enough testing by virtue of our positivity rate and exactly what you just said. And certainly, Stephanie, I'll take it a step further. It's a policy failure, but it's a failure of leadership, because we also had to cater to the president's message that we were doing enough testing. So what would it look like if we tripled, quadrupled our tests, which is exactly what we need to do? And then I will tell you this, you bring up an incredible point about isolation or people in quarantine. Most Americans have not adhered to quarantine restrictions. And I think it's because telling people to not work or not see other people for 14 days if you've had a close contact is very hard if you're a working mother or just anybody. So this has been incredible. The postmortem on this, Stephanie, I hope will reveal that we could have saved lives. We could have kept businesses open and certainly kept schools open safely.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.